Hi there, it's Maureen Muldoon, and I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 3 for our monthly book club. And also, I have a fun announcement about my friend Tammy, who's doing a book reading with me this week. So, chapter 3 from Spiritual Vixen's Guide to an Unapologetic Life. Thank you guys so much for going out and grabbing it and getting it on Kindle and all that good stuff. This chapter 3. there's a story in it that I think is really funny because it happened to me. But chapter 3, the subject is taking your time, and this is the chapter where I decide that I'm going to take a year sabbatical from dating. Like, I just decided that I just really needed to clear the slates and just stop dating. So the beginning of the chapter is the quote from A Course in Miracles is, "Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this." I think that's such a really important quote for me because instead of creating and using the talents of creativity, I was making things up. I was making my life just a shitstorm. So I'm going to read the first 2 paragraphs from this chapter, and then I'll read the story. So I knew that I was responsible for the shape that my life was in. I knew that I had gotten not what I deserved, but what I had thought that I had deserved. My best thinking had gotten me to this place. So there was obviously a problem with my best thinking. My whole headspace was definitely jacked because, as crazy as it sounds, I was still holding on to hope that Reed and I would patch things up. I know. In what strange alternative universe did that even make sense? I would cry, coax, cajole, beg, bargain, and plead. I was in deep denial and desperation. Plus, I had a huge tolerance for pain. So it was like this weird chapter where, he's moved on already. Hi, Haley. And I'm reading chapter 3. And I hadn't really moved on yet. So then I have this sort of awakening moment, which is, I think, a funny story. So I'm going to this theater company and I meet this guy, and it was before I decided to take a sabbatical, and he starts kind of crushing on me, and I'm really freaking confused and I don't know where my head is at. And he comes over to make lunch with me before we go to our rehearsal. So this is what happens on that day. One day after we were done with our scene study, I started making spaghetti. It was at my house, while he stood behind me, slightly breathing down my neck. "Are you going to rinse the pasta?" he asked. "No," I replied, and then for some strange reason, he went on a short monologue about how you needed to rinse the pasta, pulling up all sorts of substantial facts about starch and health. He had a degree of passion about pasta rinsing that made me feel uncomfortable. It was the same discomfort that I had felt with Reed, but I had never addressed. The same discomfort that I had just decided to live with. But for some reason, maybe because of all the yoga and self-assessment that I had been doing, I stopped, turned to him and said, "No, I don't rinse pasta. And no matter what evidence you have to show for the pros of pasta rinsing, I will still not rinse the pasta. Not because I'm right and you're wrong, but because I simply don't want to rinse the fucking pasta. So if this is going to fuck you up, then you're going to want to skip this meal." That happened. At that moment, I knew that I could not be in a relationship. I knew that outburst was not about Drew or Reed or pasta. It was about me finding my voice and finding a way to speak it without setting a fire. In that moment, I just wanted to eat fucking pasta. And I didn't want to have to deal with anyone telling me how to do it. And if I should die from overconsumption of starch, I had come to the aha awareness that I would probably die happy. It was not a revolutionary spiritual awakening. It was just your average run-of-the-mill moments, but it ushered in my authentic voice. I stood in that moment as he stared back at me with his chin on the floor, and I felt a rush of surprised appreciation, like running into an old friend in an unexpected place. The friend was my truth. The place was my kitchen, and the catalyst was spaghetti. And I gotta tell you that pasta was, to this day, the tastiest that I had ever devoured. So it's funny, you know, how things are, strange things are catalytic moments for us going like, okay. So I decided from that moment, if you read the chapter, that's sort of the catalyst for me being like, I need to take a year off. I tell my roommate I'm taking a year off from dating. She thinks I'm insane. But I really know that like my best thinking had gotten me to this point, and I needed to just recalibrate myself. And it wasn't about my husband leaving me. It was always about me leaving me. And that I had a way of losing myself in relationships. Maybe you relate to this, where, you know, my me quickly became our we, and then I quickly faded to the background. So, so that's where this actual journey kicks off for this year of self-discovery. In this chapter, the tool at the end is take your time, clear your space. It says, in order to grow, you have to let go of all that you are and all that you know. There are not too many things that we have dominion over, but we are responsible for our time and space, which is surprising given that we live in such cluttered corners and congested calendars. If you're not paying attention, you could develop an addiction to the high of rushing and getting and filling the space, pushing things into form before we're really ready, filling seats and clicking boxes and just to beat the clock. There's nothing beautiful about being busy. It's time to take back our power and savor the simplicity. From this blank canvas, we can take our time to contemplate and create a life that is in alignment with our most authentic being. And then this section says, do this. Be still. Carve out some open space and meditation breaks. Unplug yourself from the mad merry-go-round of the world. Trust me, you can get back on whenever the fuck you like. I added that fuck. Be radical about owning your time and space. Life has a way of trying to make us her bitch. Rip a page from my no-fail happiness plan. And I just had a client quote me this quote back, which I love when I'm reminded of wisdom that comes through me, because I know that it's for me again and again. But my no-fail happiness plan is, if you can't do it in peace, don't do it. If you can't do it in peace, don't do it. I promise the world will not fall apart. You think you need to be everywhere and do everything, but the more you say no, the more life will do the heavy lifting, and in the most magical ways. Take an assessment of all the areas of your life and clear away anything that's not serving you. Give yourself a break from toxic relationships. Continue to get comfortable with open spaces and silent hours. And listen, I hardly do it like I meditate, but like silent hours, I'm reading this like I don't think I've ever taken a silent hour. So, true confession. Get mindful in the mundane, settle into the simple, and while you take your next small step, hold a place of knowing that the divine has got designs on your future. For now, leave tomorrow to more competent hands and commit to romancing the pace of peace in life. You got this. Chapter 3. There's a lot more other goodies in chapter 3 if you want to take the time to read this chapter. And I'm going to set up a Zoom call for all of us at the completion of going through all these chapters, so we can all discuss, and that'll be a fun time whenever that's going to be. I haven't really decided yet, but I'm just sort of going at the organic pace of reading this book to you guys. But I did want to invite you out to a book reading that I'm doing at Bookseller in Chicago with Tammy Daniels, Tammy Roger Letherer, who wrote this book, The Buddha at My Table. Also a really great spiritual book on, the catalyst of divorce and the funny things that happen on the way being kicked back down the aisle. But we're going to have a really fun night. So I want to invite you out. It is, all the information is in the link in this video. And it's going to be, like I said, a fun girls' night out. It's on Wednesday, May 15th. So, and we'll probably cover this book next. Super fun. Super fun to read all the synchronicities of someone's life when they really pay attention to them. In the meantime, keep writing your stories. Keep telling your stories. Keep gathering your stories. Stories heal, and they help to empower a better version of our lives. God bless. Namaste. Bye.